Have you ever wondered what would happen if the one person everyone believed was gone forever suddenly returned to the Yellowstone Ranch? Not just returned, but came back carrying secrets that could change the future of the entire Dutton family. For years, fans have been asking what happened to Elizabeth after the heartbreaking ending of 1923. She left Montana with nothing but grief and memories. Most people assumed her story was over, but what if 1944 begins with a shocking twist nobody sees coming? What if Elizabeth walks back onto the ranch after more than 2 decades away? And what if her return uncovers a truth that Spencer Dutton has been trying to bury for years? If that happens, Episode 1 of 1944 could become one of the most emotional and explosive premieres in Yellowstone history. The year is 1944, and the world looks nothing like it did in 1923. America is deep in World War II. Families are being torn apart by distance, fear, and loss. Young men are fighting overseas, while those left behind are doing everything they can to keep life moving forward. But on the Yellowstone Ranch, another battle is quietly taking place. The Dutton family has survived for generations, yet the weight of all those sacrifices is finally beginning to show. When we last saw Spencer Dutton, he had endured more pain than most people could survive. He lost Alex, the love of his life, almost immediately after finally building a future together. Even though he continued living for decades afterward, that kind of loss never truly disappears. By 1944, Spencer would be an older man carrying years of regret, grief, and responsibility. The ranch still stands because of him, but keeping it alive has come at a cost. I imagine Episode 1 opening with a feeling that something is wrong. The ranch is operating normally on the surface, but underneath, tensions are growing. The younger generation is starting to ask questions. Questions about their family, questions about the past, questions that older members of the Dutton family would rather leave unanswered, and as those questions grow louder, a familiar name begins to resurface. Elizabeth. For over 20 years, nobody has spoken much about her. After losing Jack, she disappeared from the center of the family's story. Some people may have assumed she built a completely new life somewhere else. Others may have believed she never wanted anything to do with Montana again. Honestly, after everything she suffered, nobody could blame her. The ranch took away almost everyone she loved. Staying there would have been a constant reminder of heartbreak. But what if she never truly stopped thinking about Yellowstone? What if every year she looked back and wondered whether she had made the right choice by leaving? That possibility alone creates one of the most fascinating storylines for 1944. Because while Spencer has spent decades protecting the ranch, Elizabeth has spent decades away from it. They experienced the same tragedy from completely different perspectives. Spencer stayed and carried the burden. Elizabeth left and carried the memories. Neither path was easy. Neither path led to peace. Then something changes. Maybe it starts with a letter. Maybe news reaches Elizabeth that another important member of the Dutton family has passed away. Or perhaps she learns that the ranch is facing a threat unlike anything the family has encountered before. Whatever the reason, she suddenly realizes that running from the past is no longer possible. And that's when the shocking return happens. Not with celebration, not with excitement, but with silence. Imagine Elizabeth stepping onto Yellowstone soil for the first time in over 20 years. Everything looks familiar, yet completely different. The ranch she once knew has changed. The people she loved are gone. The young children she left behind have become adults. Even Spencer, the man who once fought beside her family through unimaginable hardships, is now older and harder to read. The emotional impact of that reunion could be incredible. Because beneath all the years of separation, there are still unanswered questions between them. Questions about Jack, questions about family, and questions about choices that can never be undone. But here's where things become even more interesting. I don't think Elizabeth returns alone. In fact, I believe Episode 1 could reveal that she has been protecting a secret for more than 2 decades. A secret connected directly to the future of the Dutton bloodline. If that theory is true, her arrival won't simply be a family reunion. It will completely reshape the balance of power within Yellowstone. And the moment that secret begins to emerge, every person on the ranch will realize the same thing. Elizabeth didn't come back to revisit the past. She came back because the future of the Dutton family is about to change forever. If Elizabeth's return is the emotional heart of episode 1, then the secret she brings with her could be the spark that ignites the entire series. Because the more I think about it, the harder it becomes to believe that she would return after more than 20 years for a simple visit. This is Yellowstone. Nobody comes back without a reason. And when someone carries decades of silence, there is usually a story hiding underneath it. As word spreads across the ranch that Elizabeth has returned, reactions would likely be mixed. Some family members might be happy to see her, others could be suspicious. After all, she disappeared for over 2 decades. Why now? Why return in the middle of one of the most difficult periods in American history? Why choose this exact moment to step back into the lives of people she left behind? Those questions would only become louder when Elizabeth refuses to give direct answers. Instead, she spends her first days quietly observing everything around her. She notices how much the ranch has changed. She notices how much Spencer has changed. And most importantly, she notices how the next generation of Duttons has grown up without fully understanding the sacrifices that built the family legacy. That could create one of the most powerful themes in 1944. Because every generation inherits something from the one before it. Sometimes they inherit land, sometimes they inherit responsibility, and sometimes they inherit secrets. The younger Duttons may have grown up hearing stories about courage, survival, and loyalty, but stories often leave out the painful details. They rarely talk about the mistakes people made. They rarely talk about the guilt people carry. And they almost never reveal the truths that families work hardest to hide. Elizabeth knows those truths. She lived through them. And after years away from Yellowstone, she may finally be ready to confront them. Meanwhile, Spencer finds himself in a difficult position. For years, he has been the anchor holding everything together. Everyone looks to him for strength. Everyone assumes he knows exactly what to do. But age has a way of wearing people down, even the strongest ones. The burden Spencer carries in 1944 could be enormous. He has spent decades protecting the ranch from outside threats. Economic pressures, political changes, greedy businessmen, people who see Yellowstone as an opportunity instead of a home. But there is one threat Spencer may not know how to fight: the past. Because unlike enemies with guns or money, the past cannot simply be defeated. It waits patiently. It follows people wherever they go. And eventually, it demands to be acknowledged. That is why Elizabeth's return feels so dangerous. Not because she wants revenge, not because she wants power, but because her presence forces everyone to remember things they have spent years trying to forget. Then comes the moment that could completely change episode 1. A private conversation between Elizabeth and Spencer. No audience, no family members listening, just 2 survivors finally speaking honestly after decades apart. At first, the conversation might seem calm. They discuss old memories. They talk about people they lost. They reflect on how much time has passed. But beneath those words, tension slowly begins to build. Because Spencer realizes Elizabeth knows something. Something important. Something she did not come all this way to keep hidden. And when she finally reveals part of the truth, Spencer's reaction says everything. Shock, concern, maybe even fear. What could possibly affect Spencer Dutton that deeply after everything he has experienced? The answer may lie with the next generation. For years, fans have speculated about the future descendants of the Dutton family. Who inherits the ranch? Who carries the family name forward? Which branch of the family eventually leads to the characters we know from Yellowstone? 1944 could begin answering those questions. What if Elizabeth has spent years raising someone connected to Yellowstone in a way nobody expected? What if there is a family connection that has never been fully revealed? And what if that revelation suddenly changes how inheritance, loyalty, and leadership are viewed inside the family? The possibility alone could send shockwaves through the ranch. Because once people begin questioning bloodlines and family history, old rivalries can quickly emerge. Some family members may welcome the truth. Others may see it as a threat. And outside the ranch, dangerous people are watching closely. That is another reason I believe episode 1 will be filled with tension from beginning to end. While the Duttons are distracted by family matters, outside forces are preparing to take advantage of the situation. Powerful investors, local politicians, businessmen looking to expand their influence. They see opportunity whenever the Dutton family appears divided, and Elizabeth's return may create exactly the kind of uncertainty they have been waiting for. By the end of this section of the story, one thing becomes clear. Elizabeth did not return to reopen old wounds. She returned because something bigger is coming, something that threatens not only Spencer, not only the ranch, but the future of every Dutton who calls Yellowstone home. And the most terrifying part, the danger may already be much closer than anyone realizes. As the mystery surrounding Elizabeth grows, Episode 1 could begin shifting its focus toward a new generation of Duttons who are about to find themselves caught in a conflict they never saw coming. Because while Spencer and Elizabeth carry the scars of the past, the younger members of the family are preparing to face challenges that could define the future of Yellowstone for decades. By 1944, many of the children born after the events of 1923 would now be adults. Some may have spent years helping on the ranch. Others may have left Montana to find their own path before eventually returning home. And with World War II still raging, some could even be coming back from military service, carrying emotional wounds that remind Spencer of his own experiences from long ago. That connection between generations is something I believe 1944 could explore in a very powerful way. Spencer knows what war does to a person. He knows what it feels like to survive while others don't. He knows how difficult it can be to return home and pretend everything is normal. So when these young men come back to Yellowstone, Spencer may recognize something in them that nobody else sees. A pain hidden beneath the surface, a struggle to reconnect with ordinary life, a fear that the person who left is not the same person who returned. At first, the younger generation may try to hide those feelings. They may focus on work, they may throw themselves into responsibilities around the ranch, but emotional scars have a way of revealing themselves eventually. And that's where tensions could begin to grow. Because not everyone sees the future of Yellowstone the same way. Some members of the family may believe the ranch should continue exactly as it always has. They respect tradition. They value the sacrifices made by previous generations. They see preserving the ranch as their highest responsibility. Others may believe change is necessary. The world outside Montana is evolving rapidly. Technology is advancing. Businesses are expanding. New opportunities are appearing everywhere. Younger Duttons may start asking difficult questions about whether holding on to the past is really the best path forward. For Spencer, those questions could feel almost like betrayal. After everything he sacrificed to protect Yellowstone, hearing family members discuss changing it might be deeply painful. But from the younger generation's perspective, they are not trying to destroy the legacy. They are trying to survive in a changing world. And that difference in perspective could create one of the strongest conflicts in the series. Then comes another complication. A stranger arrives near Yellowstone. At first, this individual may seem unimportant, just another outsider passing through Montana. But as the episode unfolds, small details begin to stand out. This person knows things they shouldn't know. They know details about the Dutton family. They know information about the ranch. And somehow, they seem especially interested in Elizabeth's return. The more questions people ask, the more mysterious this stranger becomes. Who are they? Why are they here? And how do they seem connected to events that happened more than 20 years ago? What makes this storyline so intriguing is that it creates uncertainty. For the first time since Elizabeth returned, she appears genuinely nervous. Not surprised, not confused, nervous. Almost as if she feared this person might eventually appear. Almost as if she has been expecting them for years. That reaction alone would raise countless questions. Because Elizabeth has spent most of episode 1 appearing calm and composed. She has carried herself like someone who already made peace with her past. Yet, the arrival of this stranger suddenly changes everything. And Spencer notices. Spencer has spent a lifetime reading people. He understands when someone is hiding something. The moment he sees Elizabeth's reaction, he realizes there is another layer to this story. Another secret. Another truth waiting to be revealed. Meanwhile, outside pressures on Yellowstone continue growing. Local businessmen are becoming more aggressive. Land values are rising. People who once ignored the ranch are suddenly paying attention. To outsiders, Yellowstone represents wealth, opportunity, and power. To the Duttons, it represents family. And that difference is exactly why conflict is inevitable. Throughout the episode, rumors begin spreading that certain powerful individuals are quietly working together behind the scenes. Their goal is simple: they want control. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. They understand that family divisions create weaknesses. They understand that uncertainty creates opportunity, and they are patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What they don't realize is that the Dutton family has survived challenges far greater than greed. They survived war, they survived loss, they survived tragedy after tragedy. But survival always comes at a price. And by the end of this part of the story, it becomes clear that another price may soon need to be paid. Because late one evening, Elizabeth finally reveals a small piece of the truth she has been hiding. Not the entire secret, just enough to change everything. Enough to make Spencer realize that events set in motion decades ago are finally catching up to them. Enough to make him understand that the future of Yellowstone may be hanging by a thread, and enough to leave viewers asking the biggest question of all: what exactly happened during those 20 years Elizabeth spent away from Montana? Because whatever the answer is, it appears powerful enough to threaten everything the Dutton family has built. And the closer they get to the truth, the more dangerous the situation becomes.